In the most ancient annals of the Eldar, it is recorded that an oath was once spoken, an oath so terrible that its words have rung through all the ages of Arda. Indeed, the echoes of that vow are heard even unto the ending of the world. This chronicle, then, concerns that very oath, how it was sworn, and the long, dark shadow it cast across the 3 ages of the sun.
For this was the oath of Fëanor, sworn in blinding wrath and deepest madness within the blessed realm itself. It bound all its speakers to bitter, inevitable ends, calling down a doom that could not be escaped by valor, nor by wisdom, nor even by death.
Now, to comprehend the full weight of this terrible vow, one must first understand that which it was sworn to possess. Our tale begins, as it must, in a time before the sun and moon, in the hallowed light of Valinor.
The ancient scrolls tell of 2 trees of living light that grew upon the hill of Ezilohar. One was silver Telperion, and the other golden Laurelin. Their mingled radiance, well, that was the very life and bliss of the Valar, a light of such purity that its blessing fell across all the world. This was the noontide of the blessed realm.
And it was this living light that Fëanor, mightiest of all the Noldor in skill and spirit, managed to capture within 3 great jewels of his own making. These were the Silmarils. Varda herself hallowed them, so that no mortal flesh, no unclean hand could ever touch them without being withered to ash. And Mandos, the doomsman of the Valar, he foretold that the very fates of Arda itself lay locked deep within them.
But the great enemy, he whom Fëanor first named Morgoth, lusted for these jewels. He came in secret with Ungoliant the Devourer and brought death to the 2 trees, plunging all of Valinor into an utter, shocking darkness. Then he went on to the fortress of Formenos, slew Finwë, the High King of the Noldor, and stole away the Silmarils. And in his boundless grief and all-consuming rage, Fëanor gathered his people and spoke words of fire.
And there, in the sudden dark, lit only by the light of torches, he and his 7 sons swore their terrible oath. They named Eru Ilúvatar himself as witness, and called the everlasting dark upon them should they fail. They vowed to pursue with vengeance and with hatred any creature, be they great or small, good or evil, who should dare to hold a Silmaril from their possession.
And these were the 7 princes of the Noldor, who stood beside their father, their drawn swords shining red as blood in the torchlight. There was Maedhros the Tall, Maglor the Mighty Singer, Celegorm the Fair, and Caranthir the Dark. Curfin the Crafty stood beside them, and the young twins Amrod and Amros. Together all 7 took the selfsame vow, binding themselves and all their future deeds to this one single ruinous purpose.
The doom that followed upon this oath, it was swift in its terrible beginning. In their burning haste to pursue Morgoth to Middle-earth, the Noldor came to the haven of the Swans, Alcalande. There they demanded the white ships of their own kin, the Teleri. But when they were refused, a madness took them. An elf shed the blood of elf for the first time in the history of the world.
And for this awful deed, a figure appeared upon the shore. Some say it was Mandos himself. And he spoke the prophecy of the North, the doom of the Noldor. He foretold that their great vow would turn everything they began well to an evil end, that it would drive them to betrayal and despair, and that they would be forever dispossessed of the very light they sought.
And just so it came to pass. Not once, but thrice, across the long and bitter wars of the First Age, the oath drove the sons of Fëanor to turn their blades upon their own people. They brought fire and ruin to the hidden kingdom of Doriath, and later fell upon the last refuge of the Eldar at the havens of Sirion. All of this, all to reclaim the single Silmaril that had been won back from Morgoth's Iron Crown.
Now at the end of the First Age, the Silmarils were lost to the sons of Fëanor, and lost forever. And yet, the spirit of the oath, that grasping pride, that desperate desire to preserve beauty against the decay of time, that spirit was not extinguished. No, its shadow reached even into the second, and then the third age of the world. The lore masters, they attest that this very flaw lived on in Fëanor's own grandson, Celebrimbor, the greatest of the smiths of Eregion, or Hallan as it was known. You see, it was this same pride, this very same desire to halt the passing of things that the deceiver Sauron exploited. It's how he taught the elven smiths the art of the rings of power. And so, the ambition that first forged the Silmarils was twisted in a later age to forge the instruments of Middle-earth's greatest sorrow.
And remarkably, the works of Fëanor himself endured through the long ages. The Palantir, those seeing stones used by the kings and wizards of later days in fortresses like Angrenoth and Minas Anor, they were made by his very hand back in Valinor, and the light in the phial, the one Galadriel gave to the ring-bearer, that was the captured light of Arundil's star, which was itself the last Silmaril, saved from the ruin of the First Age.
And so it came to be that in the Third Age, a great choice fell to one who had actually witnessed the oath sworn in Tirion all those long years ago. Galadriel, mightiest of the elves who remained in Middle-earth, found herself faced with the temptation of power, one not so unlike that which first moved her kin to ruin.
When the One Ring was offered to her, she refused it, and in that one refusal lay the undoing of Fëanor's great error. Where he had grasped and hoarded, she released. Where he had refused to yield his own creations, even to save the light of the trees, she let go of the very dream of power that had first drawn her into exile. The curse was broken in that moment, not by might, but by renunciation.
But what of the oath itself, and those who swore it? Well, at the very end of the War of Wrath, when Morgoth was finally overthrown, the last two Silmarils were recovered from his crown. Their fate, and the fate of the last sons of Fëanor, was one of the bitterest irony.
The two surviving sons, Maedhros and Maglor, they seized the jewels at last. But their right to them had been forfeited by their many merciless deeds, and so the hallowed gems burned their hands with an unendurable pain. In his final despair, Maedhros cast himself and the Silmaril he held into a fiery chasm of the earth. And Maglor, who could not bear the anguish, cast his jewel into the great sea, and he wanders still upon the shores, singing forever of his pain and regret.
And so the Silmarils found their long homes at last, one high in the heavens, one in the deep fires of the earth, and one in the fathomless waters of the sea. The oath was fulfilled, yes, but it betrayed its keepers to the very end. Yet, the light that Fëanor sought so jealously to possess was not extinguished. It passed through ages of sorrow into forms he could never have foreseen, becoming a star of hope, a light for the small when all other lights went out. The oath drove its speakers to their doom, but the light endured.